Today, we become legends.
Smite's latest edition, Kujira, has caused quite a splash on the battleground. And I'll just come out and say this, I'm not a fan of this god at all. I've seen pretty mixed opinions about him online, with some people saying he's really cool and fun to play, and others saying he's boring and brings nothing good to the game. I'll start by saying that this god can be fun to play as. He has constant cooldowns up, is ridiculously tanky, and wins lane super hard. Plus, it probably helps that he's definitely a bit overtuned at the moment. However, that's sort of where the praise ends. Playing against this piece of shit is probably the most uninteractive and frustrating experience I've had with Smite in a long time. Laning against this guy, whether it be in solo or duo, is a complete and utter nightmare. I'll be coming at this mostly from a solo perspective, as that's where I've played as and against Bakke the most, but plenty of people are trying him in support too with great success. In the solo lane laning phase, there's basically nothing you can do in terms of fighting into Bakke, since he has some of the fastest wave clear around and pokes you at the same time he clears. It's super easy to aggro the whole wave to you as Bakke, since your autos collateral the enemy god while you're clearing, so you're literally hitting the entire wave of 6 with your autos at all times. This also applies to his level 1 buff clear, which combined with his 2's cooldown reset makes him get to lane faster than most other solo laners, mid laners discounted of course. And as we've all seen with the recent mage meta in solo, how effectively you can clear the wave is extremely important, as it lets you pressure and secure neutral farm from pretty much the entire laning phase, which really adds up over time. The 2 is also a big problem in my opinion. Its base cooldown is already 10 seconds, which goes down to 6 at max CDR, which you get super early in solo. Literally just breastplate plus silver and blue totem and you're already max CDR, but of course it's not just the 6-second cooldown, it's the fact that Bakke is reducing this by 1.6 seconds every basic attack if he's hitting you and your wave at the same time, which is usually the case if he's facing a melee solo laner. Even without hitting you, it's still 0.6 seconds off per basic on the wave, and this ability ends up having a cooldown of something more like 3 to 4 seconds when you're boxing. The damage isn't enormous, but as we all know from Hebos 1, an ability with this low of a cooldown that's near impossible to miss and has good range is going to be a problem, even if it has lower damage than most. Plus, you're applying up to 10% damage reduction to the enemy with this, which goes up to 20% if they also hard CC'd you recently due to his passive. Given solo is mostly back to being tanks and bruisers, almost every god you're playing into Bakke will have a hard CC that you want to land on him. This curse lasts 6 fucking seconds for some reason, and so it's possible in a long boxing fight that you can actually double stack this curse without even needing your passive, since the ability is more than capable of going below 6 seconds with a bit of CDR. Oh, and it also slows for 15%, but if the enemy was cursed beforehand, it goes up to 30%, which is really noticeable, and though it only lasts 2 seconds, it can be reapplied every 6 seconds bare minimum, and more like 3 to 4 seconds in an actual fight when you're basic attacking people. Sonic Wave is actually a really big problem with Bakke that I think goes overlooked a little bit in favour of complaining about his autos. That's not to say his autos are fine as is, I think they maybe do need reduced damage to minions or something, just to make it so he's a lane bully, but not literally impossible to fight into in the laning phase, because you're always fighting his wave while he clears yours in seconds without using any cooldowns or mana and can then harass you afterwards. While we're on the topic of these autos, I understand the design decision behind giving him haste, since it's his main damage in fights. It's either his autos or his 2, which you're using autos to reset, but I do think it's a little crazy at the moment. If your dash gets burned, you're literally never escaping this guy without peel, since most melee backline divers at least have to time their autos well and spread them out so as to not slow themselves down too much and lose the chase. Bakke just never has to worry about that. A tiny bit of attack speed in the build from Shoguns, Berserkers, or War Banner and support, plus your 1, and you're already at basically the maximum haste, leaving the rest of your build completely open to fill with good tank items. I will say here that while Bakke can't gain attack speed, he can lose it, so any gods or items with strong built-in attack speed slows like Chak 3, Wukong 2, Witchblade Dagger, etc. will counter him fairly hard. Not only do you neuter his damage, you also neuter his 2's cooldown and his 1's procs by doing this. Which, by the way, the 1 gives up to 60 of each procs for free, which is a little insane to me. That alone is adding 36 damage to every auto he does as well. But yeah, if you're looking to shit on Bakke spammers, I highly recommend picking an attack speed slowing god and buying something like Midgardian Mail or Witchblade Dagger. You'll make him very sad. However, I think that's just indicative of a not great design. Of course, attack speed slows are going to be strong against a basic attacking god, but it sort of feels like you stand no chance in lane against this guy without specifically counterpicking him with an attack speed reduction. For solo at least, you're not going to be building Midgardian into a magical, and you're probably not going to be rushing Relic Dagger either because it has no prots, so you just sort of have to suffer into this guy unless you actually counterpicked him with your god, which you of course can't do in casuals unless you literally want to spam Chak every game hoping to run into him. It feels way too polarizing to the point where it's unfun, and I absolutely hate seeing this obnoxious whale in my loading screen. I haven't really even talked about his ult yet either, which is completely disgusting to play into in itself. Once stacked up, which takes literally 1 second of being in the area by the way, it's as strong as Oloran ult, but the main reason it's even more frustrating to fight into is that it moves with Bake. At least with Oloran ult, you have to be fairly precise with how you place the field to avoid people only taking like half a second and then walking out of it. With Bake's version, he controls the area, and for what it's worth, the stacks also decay off of you over 1 second when you leave, which is not the case with Oloran ult, so even after you escape, you've got a bit of lag, so to speak, to deal with. And since Bake is so ridiculously tanky, it's going to take an enormous commitment, likely from multiple people, to take him down, at which point the ult has probably done its work, and Bake's team free-casted on you while you were 40% slowed in literally everything you do. Again, I know Oloran ult has been in the game for literally years and very few people complain about it, but it's that crucial element of not having to skillfully place the area that makes the difference here. Just press 4 and left-click W through the whole backline, it's that easy. And that's sort of how I feel about Bake in general. He's just a completely brain-dead god. Maybe I've been spoiled by the last release being Marman, who I think is a very high skill god to maximize, but Bake really feels like you can just completely turn your brain off and still do immense amounts of work. At the very least in the laning phase, but even in team fights to a certain extent. The only skillful thing with Bake outside of general smite skills like positioning and whatnot is being able to use his 3 to good effect. And if you're thinking to yourself, Bake's 3 is literally just Herc's 1 with a bigger hitbox, you'd be exactly right. There's genuinely nothing about this god that takes any mastery or brain power to use. Just press 1, 4 and left click W using your 2 off of cooldown. Chase or push with your 3, I guess, that's it. I understand that simple gods are an important part of the game, and I think there are plenty of easy and simple gods in Smite that are very well designed, but with the combination of being extremely frustrating to fight into, and being able to be played optimally by an 82-year-old grandma who's never played a video game before, makes this god so rant-worthy. How a god feels to play against is just as important, if not even more so than how fun they are to play. This is a multiplayer competitive game, and there's always a guy on the receiving end of stuff like this, so making gods with counterplay and at least a grain of skill involved allows players to feel like they're actually in a fair fight and the better player wins. Sadly, with Bake, it just does not feel that way at all. I don't really have any specific suggestions for nerfs to help remedy this, because I think it's more indicative of a larger design flaw with the god itself that numbers nerfs won't fix. Plus, he's not actually been out that long as I'm making this, and it's possible people do just need to find that counterplay and he's not that overtuned, just frustrating and poorly designed. If anything though, I would say hit the cooldown and or damage reduction on his 2 and the protections on his 1 as a start and then see where he is. But anyway, that's enough ranting for one day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. What are your personal thoughts on Bake? Do you agree it's frustrating and poorly designed, or is it just a skill issue on my part? Let me know down below and I'll catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day and peace out, you nerds.